without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to George. And let me just let him know. Hey, George, we are ready for
Alexandra.
you to. We're ready for
I
you
made you
to
into a co-host.
I'm sorry?
I made you into a co-host so
Okay,
you can
perfect.
meet people.
Perfect. And we're ready whenever you are, so take it away.
Yeah. So are they coming into this room as participants, or should I just get started?
You just get started. I'm actually sharing this feed directly with them, so they'll just be watching.
Oh, okay. So I won't be able to see them on the other end.
Yep.
Well, hi everybody. Thank you very much for being here. My name is George Lee, and I represent Canva, but I also am a teacher here in San Francisco Unified School District at Balboa High School. So I also teach in San Francisco, so we're close enough. You know, you guys are in the Valley and I'm here in San Francisco. So I've been teaching at a public high school here in the city for the last 27 years. And so when I was kind of, throughout my teaching, for being teaching for so long, I'm always looking for kind of new ways of kind of delivering my lessons, that still kind of excite me after all this year. And so I have to say, kind of finding Canva kind of basically revolutionized a little bit in how I am now teaching. So I'm hoping to share some of my experience of using Canva and what it kind of means, especially, in this kind of, pandemic and us being able to teach in this transitional period of going from the web, being kind of a virtual classroom to, in-person classroom and kind of the hybrid in between. So I think that this platform can really kind of facilitate in that shift, especially for next year. So I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. So again, my name is George Lee, and so teach here in San Francisco. So today's agenda, what is Canva for Education? We're going to go over that. How do I get set up with Canva for Education, and creating Canva for how do you actually create lessons and templates in Canva for Education, and how do you actually share your assignments? And also beyond that, not just sharing your assignment with other students, but actually the ability to do interdisciplinary curriculum. So if you're teaching in, like, say, pathways where you have different teachers from different subject areas that you're working with, this is a very good tool to be able to do that in integrating all the different subject contents. Okay. So when I first kind of got introduced to Canva, I really liked the whole philosophy that they have, which is to empower creativity and collaboration in every classroom. Now, obviously, we want our students to be creative, in their learning and how they actually solve problems. That goes without saying. But the main problem that I was having is that a lot of the times, especially in kind of the virtual classroom, the collaboration was really a challenging thing. So how do you actually collaborate? If we were in a physical classroom, you can tell the students, hey, everybody go sit at the same table, or, make a circle, and, you give a prompt. But how does collaboration happen virtually? Other than, say, Padlet or Google Doc, where you guys, are using, if you use those softwares. But Canva has a very unique way in which collaboration can happen, and that's what really drew me to wanting to use Canva for basically all of my lessons now. Now, what is Canva for Education and what is included for free? So if you have a school district, if you're a teacher and you're a student, Canva for Education is free to everyone that signs up, okay? So what is included is you get to create. One of the things that I really like about Canva is the fact that they have basically visual images, millions of premium images, fonts, graphics, even video now, animations and templates are actually there for you to use. Background removers and other photo editing features. So this is a new feature that came online this year. So if you have, like, say, a photograph that you can use, you can actually really kind of like remove the background and do basic photo editing. So that's very helpful. Create a presentation or lessons, add to your voiceovers, and send and share directly as a video link. So as we progress more into the multimedia arena of teaching and learning, the video becomes very, very useful. A lot of the times if you're doing, say oral history where you're recording a family member, their immigrant stories or whatever their kind of origin story is, this is really useful. Or even in science, kind of making a progression of something like, say, the life cycle of a butterfly, all those things where you can incorporate that multimedia really engages the student. You can collaborate. You can dedicate classroom space to invite students and teachers to share, review, and manage your work. So it almost kind of works as a Google Classroom, but in Canva Classroom. And it's, in my opinion, is much better designed as far as the space for my own individual workflow, how I manage all my classes, and also how my students actually goes in and access the lessons. You can share your work to Google Classroom. So I design my lessons in Canva Classroom, and then with the very easy to find link, you can link it to your Google Classroom or to Microsoft Teams or any other learning management system that you have. You can very easily give access to your students. You can assign, share, and review work as an assignment for students to complete or individually or collaboratively. So what that means is that once you assign the class assignment, the students can either work individually or working as a team. It just depends on how you actually assigned the classwork or the lesson that you have. And also you can assign group work templates for project-based learning. And this is basically the way in which most of us are teaching now, is kind of to come up with a project, something that kind of is much more experiential, and the students can either work real time and also whenever they're not with you, and work almost as a homework, so they can work on their own time. So they have access to it at all times. So this is just to let you know, Canva Pro, which is their subscription, costs $12.99 per month. So this is some of the things that I mentioned they get, but as an educator, we get even more than that. I think some of the things to highlight is basically this classroom space to invite students and teachers to share review. This classroom is very, very unique, and it's not in the Pro version. So literally, it is a Canva classroom, okay? You can integrate it to, like I said before, with Google Classroom, with Microsoft Teams, or whatever other LMS that you are using. You can share it, okay? And you can send reminders, you can send assignments to students to complete, which is reviewed by teachers, and share group work or templates, as I mentioned in the previous slide. Now, how do you set up for an account? So if you don't have an account, it's very, very simple. All you gotta do is go to this URL. Basically, it's www.canva.com/education, sign up, okay? If you go to just education, there's a very easy to see button where you can just click on it. Now there's even a kind of district sign up, but if you want to sign up individually, this is how you do it. And the nice thing about this is that Canva is COPPA and FERPA certified. So that means that all our information is private. So this is a very, very secure place. We don't share any of the information to anybody. So just know that, Canva for Education is COPPA and FERPA certified, okay? Now, how do you set up your classroom space? This is where we go into the Canva classroom. So here it is. So once you have it, right? If you see this little icon with the graduation cap, that means that you are in you're in the education templates, in the education space. That means that you're for purpose, so this is the name of the class, okay? So this is what makes it unique, so that you can now create your own classroom. You can change it to, like, I'll show you later on what I did with myself. You can change your class name, you can change the banner, and here are basically every single one of these templates is a lesson. Here is the link on how to invite students or other teachers. So you can get an invitation link and you can send that out, or you can import it directly to Google Classroom. And you can then add students individually if you like, or you can toggle this onto teachers. And when you share with the teachers with the editing ability, you now have a integrated lesson template. Like a lot of the times, because I work with English and social studies, biology, physics, and math, I just kind of whatever the template is that I have designed, I send it to the English teachers. So, I did this business plan project with the econ teacher, my senior class, and I send it to the econ teacher. So now the teachers is able to be part of the assessment and review of that assignment. So a lot of the grading that we do is become now basically one large grade. This is what your students will see. They will see during the class. Once they click on that, now it takes them to the template, and now they're part of that assignment. Finding learning materials. So this is one thing that basically I think a lot of people are drawn to Canva, because they have so many different basically templates in different forms that is basically a time saver. So if you think about having to design a lesson and it takes you an hour, now your basically time to design that new lesson probably will be cut to about half of it. It's really kind of and the reason why I say that is because if you want to do a presentation, there are all this presentation that is content-based, So there's an English one, senior science class, so there are so many of them. You click on one and you make basically modifications. So instead of like starting a brand new lesson, like say on Google Slides or any other or PowerPoint, you have this very engaging graphics and content that allows you to basically go beyond the halfway point and really personalize your lesson. Lesson plan organizers, if you want your students to be part of the pedagogy of how you teach, these are very good, or you can share this with other teachers or with admin. So this is a very good way of actually presenting your lesson plan instead of say like a paragraph by paragraph Google Doc. So this way, and each one of these design actually is designated towards a particular way in which you teach. So there's a pedagogical reasoning to why each one of the template is different. You can make classroom announcements if you want to, and again, you don't have to search for images anymore. You don't have to search for font, depending on which grade level you are in. If you're in the lower grade, find one that addresses the kind of what you think is the aesthetics of your students. If you're in the older day, like for career day, for the higher grades, so each one of them, click on them, make small changes to the fonts, to the imaging, and to the messaging, and you have it. Like I said, it will save you at least half of, at least 50% of the time that you would spend creating this. You have all these worksheets. Each one of these worksheets here, we have some, very simple summer word search. If you want to do this worksheet, you can actually make a collection of worksheets that links to each other so that you can basically scaffold the information. So just because you start with one worksheet doesn't mean that it's the end of that particular learning. You can say this is the lesson one, and then you can create a second one, a third one, a fourth one, and make it into a unit plan rather than just a lesson plan. And there are different basically subject matter and content. And I've been working with their basically template team. And one of the things that I really push on to the designers, because they're not teachers, is to really understand kind of our content standards. And the ones that we use is the Common Core. I also kind of share with the California content standards. And I will go through like different content standards from different parts of the world and different parts of this, of the country. So just know that a lot of this a lot of these templates are based on real content needs that we teachers have. And what this template does is basically, accelerate our pedagogy and the designing how we deliver our lessons. Classroom decors, again, a time saver, make your, you can just do this as a digital version or print it out, whatever way you want to do it. It just makes that learning space, that learning environment much more inviting. Student of the week, or really give kind of acknowledgement or accolade to students. when they, as part of their learning process. Posters, there are different kinds of posters. Like when I think about posters, what I'm really thinking about is basically a space for students to really do a synthesis and a summary of their understanding. So planets in the solar system, they might learn this in science, and then really trying to show their understanding in a way that has been synthesized, analyzed, and summarized. So a lot of the posters in itself has a pedagogical reasoning. It has basically a learning objective of not just kind of throwing a whole bunch of content on there, but how do you basically highlight the main points of the content in which you want your students to learn. And you can obviously, here's a really nice poster where you can celebrate our students. I like the solar system learning, can basically kind of like a learning kind of process. So learning, classroom rules, all these things are basically kind of, a way to really engage your students and summarize the information in which you want to summarize. Okay. Here are group work. So a lot of the times, if you want to do mind mapping, there are different ways, and each one of them follows a particular process. If you want to basically have a more logical sequential, there are templates, there are storyboardings that you can use. I really encourage you to kind of just go in there and kind of type in the search button to see what sort of stuff comes up. I think that in your exploration, within 5 to 10 minutes, you're going to find something that you can connect to what you're already doing, and really kind of create an engaging presentation and platform for you to teach with. Infographics. What I like about infographics is that, and this particular as compared to a poster, infographics are always very sequential and very logical. So if you have content that requires, like say, historical events, or like here, the life cycle of a butterfly, which is very linear and very logical, these are very good ways in which you can help the students to organize their thoughts. And again, every time I create something, I actually share it. So like say, and my biology teacher actually did something similar to this, and he just completely loved it, and it was very, very engaging. Okay, so here's one for English, and here's another one for science. You can do this for history, social studies. So this one, so infographic usually pertains to a logical, a sequential kind of understanding of the content. Now we're incorporating videos. So a lot of the times the kids with their TikTok and with their social media, you can basically channel that energy into kind of a learning assignment. Oral history is one thing to do. They can basically, like create some events or whatever else that they have, in their own personal life, and really use it, in this multimedia way so that they can feel much more engaged in their learning experience. Creating and sharing assignments. How do you do all those things and engage your students? So one of the things that I said before was, I usually start all my lesson planning now and my lesson creation in Canva. Some of you are still using Google Classroom to do that, or any other document that you're using it. But what I'm doing now, because I've been introduced to Canva, is I create my lessons. I create my lessons in Canva, and then I did export it to Google Classroom. So if you use Microsoft Teams, you just export it, and the students will get a notification. They sign on, there is a link to Canva, and then they jump it into the Canva lesson. When you are working on the lesson, so in April, we did an Earth Day poster assignment where we talked about environmental justice, environmental science, all the things that pertain to that aspect of the science. So we integrated that. And one of the nice things about it is that you get to basically make comments. So if you click on the template, then you can basically make comments and give feedback to the students, and they get an email notification. So it's very seamless in your ability to comment on your students' work. now creating in Canva. Now, this is something that I did with my student. I just basically used the template for presentation. If you see what this is, all these images were created just using the elements function in Canva. So if you look at this, and what is unique about these three images is, this is actually the front of my school, Balboa High School, and this is actually me. Each one of these little creatures or these characters is actually a student of mine. So if you imagine a workplace where it's collaborative, and what they did was that the first person threw in a house, the second person says yes, and then I'm going to put in a street, and then trees. So basically, this is a collaborative digital storytelling, and artwork that was created by 30 students together. You know, so when Melvin threw in the BMW, everybody says, I want to get a ride. So they have all this. So here is, you know, and this was actually a story that they created about their experience of learning, you know, during the pandemic, being kind of in their own virtual classrooms. So they all imagine going onto this Hawaiian vacation together. This is Honolulu, and it's actually my way of teaching them how to write a screenplay. And here they ended the story. I didn't know how the story was going to end. They ended the story by taking a group picture in front of the school, and everybody is going back to school. So all your students, you know, they really want to be back at school. And here's another lesson that is a little bit unique, where they work individually. So we had a Frida Kahlo exhibition here at the Dion in San Francisco. So I used the template, and they basically created all these self-portraits. And I told them that, hey, when I see you in real class, I'm going to use this. I'm going to identify you using this portrait. So it was kind of a fun assignment. We did an econ class with the students, used basically the professional templates, and they created a digital storefront as part of their business plan assignment. So this is in collaboration with their econ class. So they created this beautiful website that is still live now, and these 3 students are still actually managing, even though they are not in college. So we did this last year. So this is one way of them becoming basically lifelong learners. And this website will stay for as long as they want to use it. So this is amazing. So all the things that you create lives in the server and is there, and you can access from year to year. And your students who worked on it can still have access to it. One thing that I really like is this ability to see all of our students. So this is the Earth Day poster that we have. And what they did was they created, each one of them is the one individual students. You know, a lot of the times when we're teaching, we're always kind of wondering, you know, how long they're gonna, how long they're just gonna take them to start the work, and like, you know, you kind of delivered the lesson, you're thinking about what is it that they're really thinking. So when you work in Canva, there's a little function here that shows all of the work at once. So basically, if this was an animated thing, you see the trees moving, you see the text moving, you see people writing their messaging. So basically, literally, this is an animation of my students' thinking process. So if I ask, what are my students thinking? Now I have a visual animated representation of that thinking pattern. And I can then click on one and make comments and use that as a learning opportunity for the other students to see, you know, so then they basically cross-inspire each other, so that if somebody comes up with a new techniques, then they incorporate it into their own. So it becomes a very collaborative process. And I can imagine doing this, like projecting it onto my screen when we go back to the classroom, and each one of the students using their own individual laptop, seeing their work, but also having the ability to really instruct this as a classroom assignment. Right now, they're seeing it as a share screen, but when we go back into the classroom, this becomes basically what's projected on the screen in the classroom. So if you have any questions, I'm not able to see you because you are a Microsoft team, but Alexandra, if there are any questions, if you can kind of copy it and post it onto the Zoom, that would be great. But if not, I will then move forward. Okay.
Hey, George, we didn't have any questions come in yet.
Okay, great. All right. So if you have any topics that you would like me to cover, just write it in your Microsoft team, and then Alexandra will then kind of put it into our chat here on Zoom. So there are additional resources, that, Canva has. We have this teaching with Canva, and this is basically an onboarding document that we can provide you with. It basically kind of goes into detail, what the steps are to using basically Canva in your daily teaching practices. We have a lot of kind of video tutorials that we can basically use. Basically, each one of them gives you the step-by-step about how to basically set up your Canva classroom. And here's the URL, okay, for you to do that. We have the design school. So if you feel that your students need to have much more of, like, say, a visual communication skills, because Canva is a graphic design, basically space. And I think of design not as just to make something look pretty, but what design really means is the way in which you organize your idea, your content, in a way that is communicated, especially nowadays when we're using the computer on the screen. How do you organize your ideas in a way that is clear, that is accessible, that is effective, and that is efficient? So that's basically what design basically means and what graphic design means. Okay, we have a Facebook group, and if you want to, kind of go further into how to use, I actually do a webinar every Friday. So if you sign up to this Facebook group, you can be part of that, and you can sign up for all the workshop. And there's a lot of information that teachers are sharing with each other, and along with some of the Canva employees, they share content and information. Okay. And if there are any more questions, this is basically kind of the end of my presentation.
George, thank you. There was a couple of questions that came in. Is there any Spanish content in Canva?
They have a Canva for Latin America. Like, one of the things that, but you need to sign on, and there's actually a different domain that allows you to basically have everything in Spanish. So, there are different countries, and I can have access to that for you, because we have teachers. I just actually did a global webinar where we actually had teachers from Buenos Aires, from Mexico, from Spain, from different parts of the globe that are actually from Chile, that are actually using Canva, but they have it in a Spanish version. They also have it in Chinese and in other different languages, but that's, it's a different domain. So if you I can get information for you, and if you want to have only a Spanish version, you can very easily go to that. And I completely agree with having a Spanish version, because just to give you a little bit of a background about myself, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I grew up in South America. I was born in Taiwan, so I speak Chinese, but I grew up in Paraguay. So a lot of the times when I'm teaching, especially for our students in San Francisco, we have a lot of kind of English learners. So a lot of the times when I'm teaching, I'm actually incorporating a lot of Spanish into my daily lesson, into my presentation. But one of the things that is really, I'm going to show you guys something if I still have some time. How much time do I still have, Alexandra?
Yeah, good question. About 5 to 7 more minutes would be perfect.
Okay. I want to just show you guys something that we did. and this is something that I did last time. We actually made so this is the same business plan projects that we did. So we had another student that basically translated it into Spanish. So this is kind of one of the ways in which we did that. So here is sobre nosotros. So we kind of, and again,
Do you mind sharing that? We can't see your screen quite yet.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Thank you. Let me share my screen again. So let me just kind of go back a little bit. So this is that same business plan assignment that we did. So we kind of made the modifications, we added some people, the teachers, and then this is in English, and we kind of translated it into Spanish. So if you are, a Spanish speaker, instead of HA is actually JA. So that's for people that speak Spanish. But this is one example. But one of the things that I found in my way of teaching, that a lot of the time, because we want to bridge the achievement gap, we want to include everybody, there are lessons in which we design that actually allows, like, for example, this particular lesson that I taught, where we're just using basically the elements of art and principle design. So it allows the students to still be able to kind of engage by just using the different elements. Okay, so if you kind of go to, well, let me see. If you go to elements and you type, say girl. So if you do that, then it allows the visual language to be part of the learning process. So that's one way. So this would be La Niña, so if they can actually do that, then they still are able to kind of be part of that learning process. So it's deferring to the visual language rather than just the written language. Okay. Let me see if I can find a few other examples of the lessons that I've done. So maybe I can go to I can actually show you my own classroom, the one that is at SWSD, and I'll just kind of very quickly share with you what my own classroom looks like to give you much more of a context. So when I sign out, this is my classroom. Here's the George Lee's classroom, and all my lessons are here. So it's very easily accessible. Here are copies. So we basically did a film analysis of the students' work, and basically students that aren't able to speak, English and be able to write, they were able to use the visual language to really engage in that process of basically analyzing visually what the lesson is about. We did a lesson in which our students basically created a census. This is when last year when we basically created a poster with different, we translated it into Chinese, we translated into Tagalog and different languages that our students were basically working on. Okay. Are there any other questions that is coming up?
Yeah, there was one other question, and I think the answer to this is yes, but I just want to confirm. So everything that you've shown today is free for all education users, correct?
Absolutely. If you signed in, if you have an educational account, everything is absolutely free. Everything is absolutely free. And I just actually switched my account. So one of the things, you have to have this little, see the graduation cap, that confirms that you have an education account.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, George. Okay. And then there was another question. We already answered it in the chat, but I just want to answer it out loud. So Schoology is our LMS. So there was a question about, will Canva Classroom integrate with Schoology? And it looks like that integration is coming, and we'll have that available next school year for our teachers.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So that integration is happening for you guys. Great.
Yep, perfect.
Okay.
All right. Well, was there anything else, George, that you wanted to share with us? Is there a way for them to contact you if they have any questions, or how should they reach out if they have any questions about Canva?
Absolutely. So my Canva email is glee@canva.com.
Perfect. I'll go ahead and share that. And then when you get a chance, if you could send over those domains for the Spanish sites, that would be really helpful, and I can get that to my audience as well.
Absolutely. I will absolutely do that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, George.
Okay, well, I wish that I can see you guys, but I think that we solved this technological issue. So I hope that you gain something out of this. And again, you can reach out to me, my email's there. So looking forward to kind of sharing more Canva basically experience with you guys. Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and leave the Zoom now, but thank you so much for presenting.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, everyone. So that was George. This webinar is being recorded, so you will get a copy of that recording in case you feel like you missed something. And I'm going to reach out to him and try and get his slide deck as well so I can share that back out with you guys.